Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is July 7th, 2018. Happy Saturday to everyone out there tonight. We are awaiting our guest, Henrik, who will be joining us shortly. But for now, I'll go ahead and get into some space weather. Take a look at our solar wind speeds at 478.2 kilometers per second with a density of 5.6. Once again, we are looking at 0 sunspots. This is the 10th day in a row. Now, here it says here that they are looking at some active region on the eastern limb of the sun. It could become into view by the 8th of July. And yesterday, this region actually had a C-class solar flare. Now, also, taking a look at the SDO, let's first get the KP indices, which are quiet today at 2 and 24-hour max is 2. But what we reported on Thursday, when we took a look at the right here, and then this was the CME plasma filament. So we could be dealing with effects with that here soon as well. And it's curious to me to find out if we were looking at activity from the CME and the solar flare at the same time, because looking at the comparisons right here, but that is a bigger active region than once had thought here. So like I said yesterday, we saw C-class solar flares from it. And we will keep our eyes on this one, as we have had 10 days without sunspots. So as long as this holds up together over the next 24 hours, Noah is almost certain that we will see this become another sunspot. Taking a look at our TSI reading, and this goes for June 29th. And we slid down to 1360.77, down a whole 0.05 on the TSI. And that's just how it goes. And I wanted to share a couple of articles tonight, and hopefully Henrik joins here just in a few minutes, get his point of view on some of this stuff as well, because I've got some interesting stuff to talk about tonight. He's having technical issues, says my producer Mari and the showrunner. But before I actually get to the articles, since Henrik's not here, this would be a good time for me to do this. I've gotten some feedback from time to time on some of the comments about the political stuff. And I quickly want to point something out. And this is it. And I'm going to try to get away from it, because I don't want to turn this into a political channel. But when I go to channels or websites like What's Up With That and the in-depth coverage that they put here to some of the EPA policies, some of the money that's being spent out of this Green Climate Fund, there's a lot of information here that's not politics. And then there's a lot of information here that has to do with politics. And I think the importance, or the thing that I'm trying to drive home here, is that it's not so much that I'm trying to promote an individual or a party. What I'm simply pointing out is, if we had actually have a president who followed along the lines of Obama's policies here, which, by the way, I want everyone to know that the Trump administration is unwinding these Obama energy policies. So I just want people to understand that it's important to make people aware of what the media is trying to do to our public officials. the stunt with the lady asking Scott Pruitt to resign immediately, just stuff like that. It's all about perception, and I just don't think that I don't think it's fair to rope me in with the political situation because all I'm trying to highlight simply is that unfortunately it comes down to politics because if this was another president who had different agenda ideas, we as a community would be looked at as fake news. Think about that for a minute, folks. If someone who favored global warming was president right now, I don't care if it's Democratic or Republican, picture a world, or at least the United States, with a president that was all about man made global warming. And think about all the work and the research that would be thrown away. All right. And that's why I stress out so much about these cabinet members who are going along with this agenda. And this agenda is also about promoting the truth about our climate. And that's why they're changing so much. That's why we're going to see so much legislation being changed, so many regulations being changed. It has nothing to do with anyone making any more money. It is that finally the real science is making its way to someone's desk who's actually smart enough to look at this. And it's not Trump, it's people that work for him. It's lawmakers that's been in Congress and Senate for years, and they're seeing a consistent pattern of new information, of data that suggests that maybe we need to reevaluate the way our our policies are done here because like I explained to you guys the other night about the Paris climate treaty, how much money that we are actually saving by not being in it. And who knows, guys, when you look at the results, if everybody did what they're supposed to, and we get a temperature savings of 0.0015 degrees Celsius, that seems like very little for a whole lot of money, billions of dollars that taxpayers pay on a yearly basis from this country alone. Not anymore, but so that's my whole rant on that. I'm going to listen to my subscribers. Some of you have got a point. I don't want to make it look like I'm trying to drive home any president's agenda. I am just happy that there is a president that is driving a narrative now across everywhere, mainstream media, the White House. They are trying to change the way we look and regulate at the EPA and what's considered a pollutant and what's not considered. And I'm telling you guys, they are finally listening. Somebody's listening and they are aware that CO2 is not a pollutant. And that's my story. I'm sticking with it. But that's all I really wanted to address on that. You know, I don't blame some of you folks that come to this channel for the science part of this. Enough with the politics. I get it. I'm tired of it too. I agree. It gets a little stressful. But unfortunately, sometimes some of these stories, especially on Anthony Watts and even the Climate Depot website, I mean, there's a lot of political stuff on this website. So I'll move on from that because I see our guest has joined us. Hello there, Henrik. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you.
How was your week so far? How did you have a good week? Did it stop being so hot, or is it actually tolerable now to go outside? Or
Well, first I want to say to all your subbers, I'm with you. I hate politics, so
yeah,
I just want to say that. Well, it's been up and down, and again, it depends on where in the country you are. But there is a drought now in Denmark, so you cannot use open fire. It's not so good actually. One of my neighbors, who is a farmer, I was speaking to him the other day, and he says that if we think there's a drought now in Denmark, then we have a very bad memory because back in 1992 we have the worst drought in Denmark in 120 years, and we are not there yet because that year there was only falling 1 millimeter of rain in the whole Denmark. So that record is not going to be broken because, you know, we have already had some rain here and there, but you can get a fine for open fire. But let me start telling that the bees are starving in Denmark. Most flowers
That's not
are
good.
finished. No, the most flowers are finished before time because of the heat, of course, and the sun. And roses in Denmark don't have it good. The production of 1.2 million roses, 1,000 different sorts or strains, are having it very bad because the order books are almost empty because no one wants to buy roses when you can plant them in a very dry soil, of course. So the situation is very bad.
Yeah, you've been kind of keeping me updated. I've seen a few times where you've commented about this drought that's going on and how there are concerns now of possible I wouldn't say shortages in your markets, but definitely not a surplus.
No, absolutely not. And we are not even seeing the effect now. That will first come later, of course. So
Right.
ask me next week, and I will have more bad news.
Well, we hope not, but unfortunately, it is what that is. And we've had this discussion before, Mari and I too, about we don't notice sometimes the increase in cost of food. It just kind of sneaks up on you. Like all of a sudden, you're used to paying this much for a certain amount of groceries, and then over time, you're still going to the store, and you realize you're paying almost twice as much as you'd had maybe a year, 2 years ago. And, not trying to hit the panic button here in the US, which surely I've been in the groceries several times. We're fine. There's no fight or shortages here. But with things only beginning to ramp up, being year zero, as Henrik has told me, of the grand solar minimum, I mean, if this is year zero, what do we look like in year 4 or year 8 of this event? So interesting
Well,
stuff.
that's just what I call it, the year zero, and I can come back to that later. But I just want to say one thing, and that is, that crop fail is crop fail, and then
Yep,
it doesn't matter what it's because of the heat, the rain, the hail, drought, the frost, the snow. Crop fail is crop fail, and
that's
grand
right.
solar minimum. I have to point it out again. Is not only about the cooling, it's about so many things, and things we still don't know. And I know you are going to talk about. Uh, a little bit now about the rain in Japan, and that is so devastating.
Yeah, I wanted to mention this. Thanks to Rob pointing out that what this is here is a graphic image of South Dakota, where those areas it's pointing out, that's where the hail had fallen. So this is images from space. You can see where the scar path for the hail damage in South Dakota. That's pretty massive. That's um, no destruction of a tornado path, but still impressive that we could see it up from space. And you're right. The GSM, I think one of the biggest assumptions about the topic of GSM is ice age. And you're right. It's not just about the cooling part of this because we still get all the seasons. We just don't get them. Well, we don't get the warmer ones as long as we'd like to. But it is about drought. It is about certain areas of the planet heating up as well. Like I said, the grand solar minimum is about solar cycles and the effects that solar activity or lack of has on our climate. And it can cause some very cold years. And we are forecasted where we're looking at now with information and data that we've looked at is that this next one's going to be a really deep minimum. So I'm not going to sugarcoat that, but there are things that we can adapt and get used to again.
Yeah, I'm very sorry to interrupt you. Have you heard about this is crazy. I just see this on the internet right now. The measurement in Thompson Pass, Alaska, showed that a stunning 83 inches of snow fell over 3 days, with 52 inches piling up in the first 24 hours,
Jeez.
making this some of the most intense snowfall ever recorded on the planet. What? 7 feet of snow in 3 days?
In Alaska.
Yes.
Wow. Now, I'm
in
gonna
Berlin
assume
town.
that's the far northern region, I'm assuming, right?
I don't know. I just see it now. There's a video, and I cannot hear what she's saying because then I.
Wow.
But
7 feet of snow.
it's on the NBC News weather. I don't know if anybody can confirm that this is from. Yeah, it must be from now,
We
because
have
if
to,
this has
yeah,
been from last year, we would have heard it.
okay, we're gonna have to dig that one up for you guys and put that link in the description when we find it. But that's intense. And you were talking about the floods in Japan, and let me tell you something, guys. They're getting hit right now. We had the 6.0 earthquake, which, this was nothing major, but this just adds to the pile of news that we have for Japan. It was said that we had some light population feeling the tremor. Here is the map of it right here. Around 30,000 felt some light tremors, and about 35,000 felt very weak. And this was I saw 5.9. This is saying it was a 6.0. So who knows? The USGS always kinds of take it down a little bit anyhow. This is from the JMA. So we're going to go ahead and go with them since they have their own reporting there. And then we go from earthquake to super typhoon Maria now. She has increased, unfortunately. And this area, I'm telling you, with all the storms that we have here, this is heading towards Okinawa as a category 4, as what we would know here. Now, it also says the category 5 super typhoon of this is the first one this year. But when it does hit Okinawa, it will drop down one category. But folks, I believe that's 133 miles an hour, the sustained winds. So that's no walk in the park. And no wonder it's going to be favoring re-intensification here. It's the waters are 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Right now it's undergoing one of the inner eye wall changes where we see a brief weakening before it re-intensifies once again. So this is a thriving typhoon right now in some very, very warm waters over near Japan. And here's the track of where this storm is heading. They expect landfall around July 10th. There's your 133 mile an hour max winds, sustained winds of 115. It could hit areas of Shanghai, China, and possibly reach the coast with they're expecting at least a category 3 potential landfall impact. So keep your eye on this storm. This is definitely the big one of the year so far in this early 2018 typhoon hurricane season. But nonetheless, it does have a remarkable structure right now. Very tight, very together. And we can see it right now. We're witnessing that re-intensification of the inner eye wall. So right now we are seeing it kind of weaken before it gets strengthens once again. But I know I reported a couple days ago as well about Japan, how we lost 16 people and now we've lost 37 more and 50 are missing as rains continue to falling over parts of Japan. Nearly 50,000 members of the self-defense forces, police, and firefighting services are searching for trapped, wounded, or dead. Over 4.72 million people were at one point under evacuation orders or advisories as heavy rains caused large landslides. Also, flooding, destroying homes, and swept away vehicles. It says here that we got some areas that would get 3.54 inches of rain per hour in Susaki, Kochi. Yeah, the Susaki, Kochi prefecture. That's right. 3.54 inches of rain per hour. So we've got Alaska reportedly getting about 22 inches of snow in 24 hours. And then we get rainfall rates of 3.5 inches per hour. And for them to bring that up, that means that they've had consecutive hours of rainfall that were, I can't wrap my head around that. I guess we're almost talking about a foot if it was a 3-hour period. And it says here,
and how do you evacuate almost 1.6 million people so quickly?
Jeez. 46.85 inches of rainfall in one village here in the Kochi prefecture. That says that doubles the usual amount in the month of July. That's a lot of rain. Half of that's what, 23 inches, 23.5 inches. That's a lot of rain anyway. To get 46.85 in 3 days, and you double your monthly total in 2 days. 3 days, I'm sorry. There was a quote in here. The extreme weather event is caused by seasonal rain front expected to be stationary above the main island of Honshu till around July 8th. And then parts of Japan will be dealing with landfall from that super typhoon on the 10th. Here's in quotes. This is heavy rain at a level we've never experienced, the JMA official had said. Now, just a few statements. We're talking about how this seasonal rain was pushing through and to be out of the area on July 8th. However, we still are hearing this heavy rain at a level we've never experienced. Almost every week we're hearing now. The last couple weeks, especially here, I'd say at least 5 out of the last 8 shows we've done, I've heard statements like this being said all over the world. Now, is that a coincidence? Or are things on an uptick? Obviously, things are on an uptick. But I don't know, Henrik. What was your impression of how fast that we were going to start experiencing solar minimum effects? Like, how fast was your impression? Is this something you think that we're just going to easily coast into, or is it just going to be one of those things where a piece of the puzzle falls apart too soon and we get an abrupt change?
Well, for me, this is year 0, as I call it, because, well, look around you. This year has been crazy, and we still got some months left of this year, almost half a year. And I think that the jet stream, is, I think it's teasing, if you can say it like that, because last year, we had the rain all summer. This year we have the heat, and what about next year? If it's gonna be rain, well, then it's gonna be crappy. If it's gonna be heat, then it's gonna be crappy. So anyway,
Right.
It's gonna be crappy because nothing is going back to normal. That's for sure.
It's the yin and the yang every year. It's going to be a yin and a yang type situation. And this summer, I know here in Western New York and here lately, today was absolutely gorgeous. Yesterday was gorgeous, low 70s, no humidity. We got a little bit of break from the heat wave that we had, and we stayed in the upper 80s for about a 6-7 day stretch, had the 90s a couple times. But I've only been up here a couple years, and my curiosity as the summer plays out, which I kind of thought it was going to be a little warmer. We haven't seen a really warm summer in a long time. And finally, that heat is here. But my curiosity is if we continue to see a couple more heat waves, which I would not be shocked at this point if Buffalo, Western New York, gets a couple more heat waves before we get into September this year. And if we're going into September and October with record lake temperatures, my fear is that we are seeing some pretty cold stuff in the Southern Hemisphere right now. Australia started off with some pretty cold weather and lots of snow. So with a sudden blast of cold air, say mid-October, 20th, 24th area, which, by the way, the 24th of October is usually when the first flake falls here in Buffalo. But What if we're looking at higher temperatures and we get that first cold snap? There's your ingredients, possibly for that big 2 to 4 feet of snow that this area has experienced in the past. That's nothing. The big one was 8 feet, and that was back in what, 13, 14? And people actually lost their lives. One of the places I worked at here in Buffalo, I actually worked for a company. They lost an employee. He was, probably about a half mile away from the warehouse, which some of the workers were stranded and had to stay for 3 days in the warehouse. But when the first emergency worker came to check on him, when his car was stuck, he couldn't drive. I mean, the snow fell so fast. If you were out in it for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, you're in trouble. I mean, so much snow fell so fast, but he got stranded. They told him not to get out of the car, not to walk back, stay in your car. We'll send help immediately. And unfortunately, this gentleman passed away. He froze to death.
Oh
So,
God.
but yeah, that's the kind of thing that I'm looking at right now. This year the heat is on for sure in most parts of the country. Now, the Northwest experienced some pretty cool weather, but it's like we were talking about many times before tonight. We're going to experience maximum heat in areas that are supposed to get maximum heat right now. And I got a story too I want to talk to you about. It's about the Washington Post, and my title tonight, Washington Post lies the most, and they do. And I have more than enough evidence to prove that. Quickly, I'll talk more about the hurricane here, Beryl. It's formed, but I'll get back to that here just in a second. And the other night, here's that story about the filament, the CME. This came out on the 6th. Last time I talked to you guys, it was July 5th. And we were kind of actually watching this happen live as I was kind of rambling on like I usually do at the end, but trying to keep the peace as well. But here we go. Two things real quick. And this is the only political article I have pulled up for us. But this talks about how the media is already starting to attack Andrew Wheeler. And I'm not going to read this article word for word, but I'm going to talk about how this is just an example of if your party of people are in office, then you're more than likely going to fit with the rest of the pieces. And this guy Wheeler is actually respected by a lot of longtime Republicans. So what does that mean exactly? Again, this is why I can't help but talk about politics, but our policies, our laws are based on some of this stuff. This means that when EPA Director Andrew Wheeler speaks and tells them that fossil fuels are, that man is only contributing to, what was it, like 0.04 something percent to the climate as far as temperatures and everything like that, man's effect on our planet's climate is very minimal. So when Mr. Wheeler speaks to his colleagues, his Republican colleagues, which right now they hold control of the House and the Senate, they're more than likely able to get some new laws and legislations passed that will hopefully ease the cost of energy in the near future. Also, at the same time, understand what we're putting in the atmosphere and what's really causing the problems. Because Henrik, I'm curious to see what these guys are going to say here in about 3 or 4 years. Right now, we're going to be fighting this battle with these global warmers probably for another good 2 to 3 years before everybody finally starts to see, okay. But what do you think their their excuse is going to be by then when we are clearly showing signs of constant cooling?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because they will, of course, postpone everything as they always do, I think. So, well, I'm actually curious about what their next move will be, because, as I have said before, they cannot blame volcanoes and other stuff on the human. But for 2 or 3 shows back, you were talking a little bit about the gas prices in America, and I've just found this uh, because you think it's expensive over where you're living, and you are using gallons, and in Denmark we are using liters when we are buying diesel, you know.
Yeah.
So one gallon is 3.7854, and for 1 gallon of diesel in Denmark is the price $6.42.
Wow.
And for unleaded 95, for 1 gallon in Denmark, it's $7 and 34. So
Now,
that's not good.
no, and I had a gentleman from Canada laugh at me when I made that. It's expensive. And I guess we really don't realize how good we have it here in the US because, and believe it or not, and this is going to make you even more sick to your stomach, but I remember about 20 years ago when gas was 89 cents a gallon. So that's why I'm saying $3 is expensive. But now that you've put it into perspective, $7 a gallon. I
Yeah,
mean, that's it. I'd go get a bicycle.
yeah. I was just gonna say, you know, I'm using about 2 drops of oil per year for my bike chain, you know. So for me, it's no problem.
I mean, why? To me, it's almost like you have to make a decision one week, drive your car or eat, because
No,
I
no,
don't know
no.
how anybody can afford.
Well, people in Denmark must have too many money because they are driving around in their cars like it was their houses, you know.
That's insane. That's insane.
Yeah,
$7. You know, I know throughout it's one thing, alcohol and cigarette prices are different throughout the United States too. I know here in New York, and man, in Ohio, you can get a pack of cigarettes for around $5. Here in New York, it's about anywhere from $9 to $13 a pack. And I just think it's crazy how the price difference is from state to state. And let alone now we're talking country to country here. That's more than double what we pay, and that's highway robbery. So I will not complain anymore about my $3 a gallon gasoline ever again.
thank you, thank you. Well, now we are talking prices. Then I can tell you that the drought in Denmark is, as I was said before, very bad. So open fire in Denmark is not allowed, and that goes from the whole country. And if you are using fire, which a lot of Danes are doing because they don't give a shit, so they are out in the garden and making sorceries in the grill, you know, and then the cops come and you will get a fine that
Wow.
is between $781 to $1,015 for
Ye-
just open fire. And the police are doing it, and they are busy because
Well,
people don't understand. You know, it's Denmark. You know, we're not used to drought. Well, I'm smoking and I'm making ditten and that, and you know, and it's so dangerous.
is there a water ban going on right now too? Like, are people being asked not to water their lawns or water their gardens?
There are some restrictions on in some parts of the country, but not so many places yet. But I can tell you that just the small lakes in one town in Copenhagen, 90,000 liter water is vaporizing per hour.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's a
So
lot, and that have to come down somewhere.
yeah, no, you're right. And wow.
And that's just one town in Denmark. You know,
Yeah.
we are surrounded by water.
So are you in a location now where you haven't seen rain for a long time? I mean, is this like a widespread area of Denmark or is it just pretty localized?
It's a kind of a localized. It's more in the northern part of
Okay.
Jylland. It's called. They have been getting the most rain, and they also have the coldest temperature. Where I'm living, we have been having some rain, but you know it's nothing. You know, maybe 1 or 2 millimeters. And the other day when I was out walking with the dogs, you know, there was coming a little bit of rain down, but you know it was vaporizing before it was hitting the soil. You know, and I was walking and think, oh, this is so nice, but at the same time it's so crazy. You know, it's vaporizing before my eyes. You know, because
Wow.
they're so dry.
Well,
But
unfortunately,
if
I wish we
if
could throw some rain at you guys because we had plenty of it the other night, and I watched it. It wasn't nothing like what I've talked about here in Japan, but for us, I haven't seen that much rain fall. I'm guessing half-inch to an inch fell within a half hour, and it just poured down in buckets for not more than a half hour, but it was enough to once again flood basements and other parts of people's yards throughout our street. So
Yeah,
but the
we could definitely
evaporation was
hope so.
incredible. It was so hot that night, and we had high humidity, and as soon as that rain came down, it was really foggy out. It almost looked like it was bouncing back up and going to the atmosphere. So I can relate to the evaporation part, but just in a different sense. Over here, you're getting the dry, and we're getting too much moisture in the air. So I hope that gets better for you over there, my friend.
Yeah, well, if we're lucky, in a couple of days there will be falling some rain in my part, but again, it's 1 to 2 millimeters, you know, and it's nothing. It would not help anything at all, and especially
No.
not for the farmers.
No.
So,
And speaking of heat and drought, in the title tonight, the Washington Post lies the most. I say this because I also covered this article about the Post talking about all of the global warming that was happening all over the world. And look, I have to be careful how I present this article because if you're a global warmist and you're looking at my video right now, you're saying, look, you are picking threads here. You're picking hairs. Okay. But it has to be looked at differently, guys. And I'm glad that this article brings up the discrepancy. And right now, the temperature that was reported here in Africa, that was their record, 124.3 degrees Fahrenheit. Now that beat it by almost a full degree. All right. So, but don't go popping the cork yet, because last week was kind of interesting. And I'll show you why we're talking about this, because this guy here that wrote this article lays it out, shows you the actual data and where these sensors are being placed. Now, here's the funny thing. In Scotland, we had a record temperature that the Washington Post had included. Now it's being rejected, even though that it was hot enough and that temperature reading was probably likely. Get this. This is funny to me, Henrik. There was an ice cream truck that was parked near the sensor during the peak of the heating of that day, and it was running. Naturally, the diesel on those ice cream trucks, I don't know if you guys are around, but they have a diesel engine. It's got a generator running because it's keeping things cold. So you're going to have heat from that exhaustion coming out. And just so happens that this truck was parked right near the sensor where it does the official readings. So Scotland rejected that. That's not the new high. So Washington Post, you can retract that one. And then there's this. This one's even worse, in my opinion. This guy, again, does a great job of laying out the proof, guys. I don't have to manipulate this or twist this or spin it. But this guy shows you exactly where the sensor is located here on this tarmac. And it is right next to an area where incoming jet exhausts happens to fly right over. And generally, this area between 3 and 6 is known for absorbing the most heat of the airport. In fact, a lot of airports are built the same way. And for some reason, we continue to use these airport readings as the official reading of the city. But I like that they're finally calling BS on the placement of some of these sensors. So, yes, was it hot? I know we're picking hairs here, the record has been rejected. Maybe it was only a half degree below the record. I know it's still hot, and I'm not trying to discredit that. But what I'm saying is that the Washington Post and the New York Post, by the way, they're pretty quick to promote anything that is related to global warming, anything that's related to man, anything that they think is relevant when it comes to the global warming community. Because, in my opinion, when you see so much negativity and lies, like from the Washington Post, talking about two of the cities now in that article when they were touting how there's global warming all over the world. Here we go. So we've knocked off two of those cities. And I'm hearing now there's an issue with the record in Colorado. I'm going to vet that one more. It's just a rumor. But now they're talking there's an issue with that record. And, you know, maybe 10, 15 years ago, we lived in an age where nobody really gave a damn to check to make sure certain things like this weren't really happening, or taking in the fact that these airport temperature readings are going to be higher. Same with your downtown temperature readings. It's going to be higher. What say you, Henrik? You think this is a little bit unfair to locate sensors in areas that might be favorable to picking up warmer temperatures?
Well, I think it's crazy with all those sensors they are having around. They are sitting too low. Some of them, some are sitting on walls to buildings. But let me give you another one that's very good. I can tell you at the South Pole right now, there is a temperature motor and it's minus 90.4 Fahrenheit.
Unreal.
Take that. I love the South Pole. I'm so sorry. But, in the Danish paper, not long ago, 4 or 5 days ago, there was a story like the ones you have been talking about now. This was from Oman, and all the papers were blowing up, record heat, global warming, again in Oman, a new world record for the heat. I don't know exactly what it was. I think it was about 47 degrees Celsius. It was fucking hot. But then, they were writing a lot of shit that had nothing to do with nothing. And then at the end of the article, with small letters almost, they were writing that it was 0.7 degrees higher than the last record, and that was also in Oman, and it's summer, so yeah, who gives a crap?
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, I think we did a good job over the winter of not reporting every single record-breaking temperature unless it got shattered. And we pretty much stayed with, record-breaking snows that broke it by 6 or 7 inches for the week or the month or whatever, not just by a couple of inches or a trace. I mean, we try not to sensationalize this stuff. So, when global warmists get out there and jump around and say it's hot, it's hot, it's hot, and like you said, they're talking about things that are under a degree. They're breaking the record by under a degree. It's not something that is to write home about to prove, look, or Al Gore's telling the truth. It got hot today. It's July. Heat waves happen in July. And it gets hot in Oman and Africa in July.
Yeah.
I promise that. And it's hot in Denmark. It's hot in most places. There's a lot of areas right now experiencing a comfortable summer. And all I got to say is enjoy it. Soak it in as much as you can, but wear the sunblock, because I'm telling you,
Yeah.
Father's Day weekend, I got burned. Henrik, I still have sunburn issues on my back from Father's Day. It's July 7th. That's been over 3 weeks now. So don't go out without sunblock. I'm telling you, that UV is something else. Last year I felt it. 3 years ago, I got a sunburn in March. I've never had a sunburn that early in my life, but also I lived in Southern Tennessee, so that technically doesn't count. But I noticed the sun had a different bite in 13, 14, and then really the last couple of years, I don't burn. I get dark. And these last couple of years, especially this year so far, I've had a pretty good sunburn already.
Yeah, well, I always try to stay out in the middle of the day because it's too hot for me, and my dogs, they don't want to do anything anyway, so I stay in the shadows, but I'm a stupid blonde, but I never get sunburned, never. I also get the brown tan, it's so weird. So no, I'm never getting a sunburn.
Well, you're lucky. I used to be like that, but unfortunately, last few years, I've experienced my share of sunburns. I want to take a look at some weather real quick because I want to talk about the tropical storms that we have right now in certain parts of the Atlantic. Whoops. Yeah. Sorry about that. Just trying to close out a notification. Gotta love live. All right. So here we have Barrel. Right now, maximum sustained winds of 45 knots, which is 50 miles an hour. It has a central pressure of 1,003 millibars. And it has slowed down a little bit. Earlier, I saw reports this thing was moving about 24 miles an hour, but still not anything super, super slow. This is a hurricane. They are expecting this to weaken. By Monday, we're talking possibly a tropical depression. I know there's a lot of people out there that do this for a living. The weather, the hurricanes, Mike's weather page, great this time of year. That's, in my opinion, if you want to follow anything hurricane, spaghettimodels.com is, from my experience, has been the best so far. But I can tell you right now, and it's no secret, the Atlantic is not as warm as it usually is. So right now, we're still in the negative phase. Now, I was looking at the SSTs earlier, and some of them are creeping back up. I'll show you the North Atlantic right now. It started to decline. It went down a little bit, went back up, but it's struggling, guys. The North Atlantic it's trying to get back to some kind of positive, but it's almost a full degree below the baseline right now. So it's definitely well into the negative. And look at the increase and decrease of these temperatures. Look how close these are, guys. So there's nothing sudden, or in fact, what I find impressive is that the only thing that I've seen, well, we had some increased warming in April, and then we also had some increased or quickly decreasing temperatures at the end of April going to now. So as far as Barrel goes, I'm not a professional storm chaser, but I can tell you this. I trust NOAA right now as far as this outlook goes, and they're not trying to overhype this. I don't think they're trying to downplay this. Trust me, there's folks that are nervous right now, Puerto Rico, Cuba, and we definitely don't need another situation even close to Maria. So I'm pretty sure that that's part of the reason why they're going to keep such a close eye on this particular storm system. But I could be wrong. This could intensify. I doubt it. And I'm not trying to be a party pooper for storm chasers, but I doubt it. I think this thing weakens. Now, just depending on the track, and it's too early to know, but we'll see if this thing goes into the Gulf, because the waters are actually getting a little bit warmer in the Gulf right now. So I'm not saying that the Gulf couldn't sustain a storm. And then we have Tropical Depression 3. This is another storm that I believe that might be getting a little bit too much attention because of the track of this storm. It's sitting in the warmest part of the Atlantic Ocean right now. In North Carolina, Virginia, those areas are sitting off some of the warmest waters in the Atlantic Ocean right now. Okay. But once this storm travels, and I'll go ahead and bring this up because I wanted to point this out as well. Once this storm travels north, it's going to get pushed away. Now, the stationary right now, they've got it stationary right off of the East Coast. All right. Rain bands could reach some of the coastlines. You could see some increased winds, probably an increased wave heights. But this thing's just going to churn here for a couple of days. And that's because it's waiting on this cold front to push it out next week around the 11th of July. But once this high pressure system makes its move, this storm is going bye-bye. It's pushing it out. And also, it will weaken quite a bit as it gets towards the more northern part of Nova Scotia, where the waters are cooler. And Actually, let me pull this up real quick because I want to just verify that with everyone. I want to assume that. Bear with me, Henrik. So here's that storm right here, well past the U.S., and it's getting ready to approach the colder part of the North Atlantic. And we see, look at that. I mean, huge. By Friday, as it approaches the waters near Greenland, look how much this thing deteriorates. I mean, it's still nice and organized right here. I mean, it's going to get close. We got to watch the track on this. But this high pressure system sitting in the middle of Atlantic, that's where it's supposed to be right now. And it's not showing that it's going to do anything different with that. This thing is driving the weather. Also, there's another high pressure system that's set up near Pennsylvania that is also creating these weird, like counterclockwise rain showers. And I'll show you that here in a minute. But I just wanted to kind of give you guys my opinion. Again, I'm no expert on this, but with Invest 3 sitting right off the coast of North Carolina and the Virginia area, warmest waters in the Atlantic Oceans, but this high pressure system stays stationary like this storm does in the beginning. And actually, this storm doesn't even begin to move out until high pressure is setting into the middle Atlantic. And once it settles, then it grabs a hold of it and pulls it north away from the United States in the Northeast in Nova Scotia. And it's still a tight storm right here. It's not out of the question. This could be a tropical storm or a depression even, but watch as soon as it approaches, you start to see it kind of get oval shaped. And then as it approaches near Greenland, turns into just maybe some heavy rain. And that's about it. Again, once these storms touch that cold water, that's it. They're done. Now, Beryl, which I'll go backwards, and let's see if we can find him, which I find amazing that it's not even showing up on the GFS models. Well, there it is. It literally disappears. And this right here, now, what's interesting about Beryl, right now, the GFS model appears that it's somehow combining it with Invest 3. As Invest 3 pulls north, this storm right in this region, this is the remaining moisture of Beryl. And again, it's not as warm in this area as it normally is at this time of the year. And so it pulls up into this moisture system here and moves out with Invest 3. That's what the GFS is suggesting right now. So we don't even see the possibility of any kind of redevelopment into the Gulf because of this high pressure system right now. And it's continuing to dominate the middle Atlantic. And it hovers a little bit west late July and creates a little bit more of a rainier situation. But right now, looking at what's going on out here, and I wanted to point this out because I was looking at the moisture from this rain here, and I noticed that these showers are going from east to west. And if I move it forward a little bit, we see where that storm off the coast is just kind of hanging out until we get this cold front that pushes it on. And on Sunday, this thing starts moving. Now, this is a different model than the GFS. It's showing that this storm is going to be pushed back into the Atlantic. Again, still in warmer waters, kind of hang out for a little bit. And then it's going to hook up with, looks like another very weak high pressure system pushing off into the northeast. As you see that moisture already starting to spread towards Nova Scotia area. This model looks like it's an agreement, and this is the European model, that this storm is going to stay away from the northeastern part of the United States and look impressive around Nova Scotia. But again, once it gets past a certain area of the waters, you see that all that red disappear into yellow almost instantly. And as it goes into Greenland, it is nothing but just mere rain showers. So what's the reason for the storm showers sitting right now look at the national radar here on NOAA, and you guys notice down here in the south that we've got that east to west motion from the Tennessee Valley all the way through Texas and meeting up with a system that's going through New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, and Colorado and kind of spinning out there. But thankfully, some moisture heading to that southwest region. Again, not enough to help the drought situation, but at least they're getting some relief. But the reason why we are seeing this east to west motion is that right now around Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia area, we have high pressure that's dominating. And as you see to the north, we got no moisture. And this is why we have that less humid air. That high pressure system is keeping all that humidity and moisture to the south. So high pressure saves the day here for the lower 48 as far as anyone who lives in the Ohio Valley and northward, as we're experiencing some gorgeous weather right now. Mari wants to let everybody know in the chat she did not leave. She lost her battery. And that does happen because I talk a lot, Henrik.
No. Oh, no, that's fine.
So that's the weather in a nutshell. Temperatures are expected to go back to near seasonal for most of the United States the second part of July. Judah Cohen actually has been calling for that now for the past couple of weeks. And even looking into the future, I mean, the tropics look pretty normal. The Pacific side looks a lot more active than the East Atlantic. So until we start seeing these ocean temperatures heating up, and I'll show you guys real quick where the areas really matter the most. And this is why we're not seeing the hurricanes sticking around in this area. Part of the reason why, now here's the Caribbean, which we're seeing a little bit improvement. We've seen a steady decline for the last couple months. Now it's getting erratic. We're seeing big increases and big declines, and now we're back into a decline. And this is lining up with GFS Futurecast that the barrel is going to fall apart. So we'll watch this temperature reading too and see if this actually starts heading down again. And then we'll know why GFS and the European models believe that barrel will evaporate into a tropical depression. So good news for the coast. We don't need any more. After what we saw last year in 2017, we really don't need any more major hurricane damage. Coastline damages. I mean, we had 4 nor'easterns in 1 month. I think 5 or 6 for the winter season here in the United States. So I'm not complaining about these lack of hurricanes. And God bless you if you make a living from doing this, because weather's fickle and it does what it wants when it wants. There are some things that we can control, and there are a lot of things that we can't. And when I say control, I mean predict. I think the more you familiarize yourself with ENSO and the AMO and solar cycles, and even checking out what David Dilley has to say about the moon and how it's also PERS also talks about that as well for the moon and its role in the cooling. But so we've reached that part of the show where I need to hear a Henrik story. I know something. We missed you last week. I understand your knees were bothering you. So over the last 2 weeks, there has to have been something that's happened in the land of Henrik.
Yeah, well, my knees are still hurting, but it's getting better. Yeah, well, before I start, I will just say, hello, David, Mr. Starman. What did I tell you a week or 2 ago? England was going to win. Okay, that's it. Well, actually, I would have told you a story about the time in 1997 where I was dead for a short period, but it's not a funny story, so you can have that next Saturday. Because now it's summer, and now it's summer not only in Denmark, but in a lot of places. And I will say, when I'm finished with this story here, you will know it. And if we have children, remove them, please. Okay, we all know that there is a lot of festivals around the world, and in Denmark we have a Roskilde Festival, and I have actually been with two of them in 1982 and 1983, where I saw Mike Oldfield and U2 and Marillion, wHenrik, Simple Minds, Tennessee, and a lot of other. But last year in 2017, people in the Roskilde Festival left 2.4 tons of camping equipment, stuff, tent, chairs, table, closet, clothes, umbrellas, and everything you can imagine, and besides that, ordinary garbage, from food and everything else. And it's a very, very big problem. I don't know how it is in festivals in other countries, but in Denmark, people are so lazy. They are so lazy. So when the festival is over, then their mama and dad are ready, waiting outside the festival area with the car, and then the kids are running to their parents, hello, mama, hello, daddy. Oh, it was so great festival. Oh, mom, you should have been there. I was fucking drunk and I was fucking right and left. And you know what, mama? I got the herbs. I got the herbs. So, yes, the drought in Denmark and in Roskilde Festival can be felt in many ways. Actually, right now, when the drought in Roskilde Festival, people are beginning to buy masks because there is so much piss in the dust, and that is not a joke. People are buying masks. And this is how I end this. Broken glass everywhere. People pissing on the stairs. They just don't care. I can't take the smell. I can't take the noise.
Well, I'll tell you, that sounds like festivals all up to the point of where mommy and daddy are standing outside the gates. But I believe that. I believe there's probably festivals here in the U.S. where that's happening. And the biggest festival I ever went to was Bonnaroo in Tennessee. And I can tell you that it didn't rain. In fact, that was a year where we had an open burn ban as well. In fact, I'd spent quite a bit of money on fireworks that year because it's legal there. And I was doing a lot of roofing jobs. I was a roof salesman. So we were super, super busy working in the restoration department. We had a lot of hail damage in southern Tennessee. So, but I remember going to Bonnaroo, and it was in the mid 80s to low 90s every day of the festival. And it was so hot, and the dirt, it was like so much dust in the air. So when you said people had to get masks because you could taste the piss and the dust, I know what you're talking about. Unfortunately, people like to get a little too inebriated and forget about the rules and everything, and it's all about having fun. I get that, but when it comes to things like that, that's hygienic. That to me is kind of gross. I mean, I'll go behind a tree, but
Yeah.
other areas that's a little crazy. You're saying people doing it off the stair wherever they could. They just pissed basically.
Yeah. But you know what? I also think it has changed so much, in the culture and the way we are. Because
Yeah.
when I think back, I was in the festival, as I said, when I was 14 and 15 years old in 1982 and 1983 with a lot of my buddies, and when the festival was at the end at that time, so many people were just standing, and watching other people, if someone is forgetting a tent or a chair, then people would rush over and take it, hey, I got something for free. I got something for free. Today, people got so many money, it's unbelievable what they are leaving, and I think it's so crazy. And that goes for, look how much plastic and everything. I mean, it's so crazy that people not just can think, and say, okay, this is my shit, and I take my shit with me.
Hey, camping gear is not a cheap item, and I know at Bonnaroo when that festival cleared out, it cleared out. People weren't leaving anything behind. So I mean, I have a friend that plays in a lot of festivals, a lot of music festivals. He's in a bluegrass band. Check them out. They're called Rumpke Mountain Boys. But if you like bluegrass, they're called trash grass actually, because they're kind of more like a hippie type cover, Grateful Dead type stuff, and turn it into bluegrass. But they're a great, great band. But being in festivals with those guys and going around, camping equipment is like gold to that scene. So people guard that stuff with their life. I would also be excited if I got free camping gear because, like I said, I think it's expensive, but just knowing people that go to musical festivals here, uh, they definitely guard their camping gear as almost like it's their children or something. So that's a little spoiled and unfortunate to hear that so much waste happened.
Yeah.
2.4 tons, 2.4 million tons. Is that what you said?
No, 2 tons and 400 kilo, but it's
Still,
still a lot.
that's a lot. That's over close to 4,000 pounds of
Yeah,
camping gear.
yeah.
So it's a lot.
And I'm the type, I recycle everything I can. So when I was sending you a packet of chocolate here the other day, I farted in the box.
Oh boy.
No, it's not true.
Everybody's probably like, what are they talking about? Don't worry about it. It's, one of those
Yeah,
things, people. It's
it's
one of
just
those things.
chocolate. I I I have to say thank you again for the T-shirt, Mari. My God, I'm so happy and I'm so proud of it. And I'm trying to grow a lot of T-shirts now in my garden, but I'm not so lucky.
Have you taken it off?
Uh,
You said you
I
were
had to
gonna lick
because
it.
my girlfriend said to me that she think I was begin to smell a little bit. So yes, I have been washing it, and it's on the dryer right now.
So you did wash it. That's good.
Yes,
We,
yes.
we just adore you, Henrik. You are a pleasure, and you just deserve that. We needed to send you one, so I'll probably send you a sweatshirt for Christmas or something.
Oh my
But
God, then I will find it inside a snowman or something.
yeah, we'll have to bury it in the snow somewhere so you can find
Yeah.
it. But I want to, in the chat, I want to reference the chat real quick while I have the mic here. I want to thank Rob. He did a generous super chat, and Rob is a part of our GSM family, and he's in here. And so, hello to you, Rob. Hello to you, Henrik. And these discussions with you and Jake are always a pleasure every week. I look forward to hearing the two of you talk. So, thank you for joining us, Henrik.
You're so welcome, Mari.
And on a kind of a down note, but a good note for us here, but I will be able to get back more to GSM actions as today we finished up our baseball season. We played in the championship game. Our boys owned the best record of the season at 12-1. We played a team that was 7-6 on the year, but today they were the better ones, and we did lose. Our season was over, but we did finish with the best record and still won our division. Second place for the tournament. Not a bad, but that will also free me up a little bit more. Rob, Starman, people that we have in our GSM chat, I feel like we've abandoned it here the last couple weeks of those. You guys know what's happened here with us, with other personal issues. Plus, just it's summertime, kids are out of school, but so there will be a little bit more time now, I think, for us in between shows to be able to converse more with some of the people in the chat because I can't be more thankful to have those guys in the chat informing. Henrik, you're sharing article and perspective from your side of where you're talking from. Starman, Rob is on the northwest part of the United States. We're on the East Coast. So I mean, it's good and spread out. I wish all of you were about 20 minutes away from me because we value people so much, and it's a shame that we're not closer. But still, it's good to also have access to be able to talk to you guys and pick your brains about the grand solar minimum. So I want to thank everyone that participates in that GSM Accord Discord chat. And Henrik, again, I really appreciate your time coming on the show and hanging out with us for a little bit.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I will also say hello to everyone in the chat because I'm not seeing the chat when we are making this because I'm like if I just spot it, then I'm gone in the chat.
Oh, it's like I got ADHD, and if I look at the chat, it's like me seeing a squirrel run by. And that's it. I'm gonna go after the squirrel. So
Yeah.
I'll look at the replay later and say thanks to everyone. But
and she wants to know. I gotta scroll up. Okay, hold on. People can't hear me. Okay, so Aqua Jake, real quick before we go, she wants to know if you ever went to Wen Dang Doodle in the old school Rumpke days.
Unfortunately, I didn't. I'm more of I went to Stanley's on the Tuesday. I was more local in Southwest Ohio, so I was able to go more of the local shows that were in Dayton, One-Eyed Jacks, and then back in the old days, they've been playing at Stanley's forever on Tuesday nights. But unfortunately, I've only been to one festival back in their younger days, and I don't remember very much of that. Let's just leave it at that, because I think those of you who go to those kind of festivals, you know what kind of good time you can have, filled with great people. It's just like a family community. But that's awesome to know that one of our subscribers listens to Rumpke. I'm close friends with Adam. He is the guitar player, vocalist of the band, and he's been with them now for over 15 years. While I'm talking about them, I'm going to brag as well. They've won Cincinnati's Entertainer Bluegrass Band of the Year now 15 straight years in Cincinnati. So they are actually, you can search them on Pandora, and a lot of music platforms have picked them up. So they've really come a long way. And my best friend Adam, though, we were childhood friends, grew up together, and from day one, his dream was to be a professional musician. And the stuff that he listened to, like for those of you, he listened to some weird rock, King Diamond, Guar, Ween, Green Jelly, you know, and a little bit of gangster rap. So the fact that he evolved into this bluegrass musician and one hell of a guitarist at that, it just shows you that musicians, in my opinion, are cultured people. And I think every little bit of music that he's ever listened to has had some kind of influence on him in one way or another. But enough about Rumpke Mountain. Ekla, it's cool that you are familiar with these guys. If you like bluegrass, huh? Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, they're a great group of guys. I got to hang out with them a lot more just because I live closer to them, and whenever they played in town, I usually would host them at my house or would be at a local after party. But those are great guys, fun guys to be around. I hope they play for 15 to 25 more years, because if you go to a Rumpke show, you'll have a great time, guaranteed. All right, well, that's going to do it for us tonight, guys. I appreciate everybody that tuned in. Henrik, thanks once again for joining us.
You're welcome.
All right, guys, we'll be back next Saturday with Henrik, and possibly every once in a while we might see him throughout the week as well. We will take the day off tomorrow, but we'll be back on the air on Monday. Till then, you guys take care. We'll talk soon.